with me. You've been my savior, sustainer when I'm at my end, my healer, redeemer, again and again, my mother and my father, brother, sister, and friend. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. When I stand before you guilty, oh, your mercy bears my blame. When in pride I think I'm worthy, you point out the price you paid. When I wander far away, you keep calling out my name. You don't give up on me. You've been my savior, sustainer when I'm at my end, my healer, redeemer, again and again, my mother and my father, brother, sister, and friend. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. You are my strength, my rock, Jesus. You are my hope, my song, Jesus. Before my heart knows what to pray, you've already made a way, Jesus. You've been my savior, sustainer when I'm at my end, my healer, redeemer, again and again, my mother and my father, brother, sister, and friend. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. You've been my savior, sustainer when I'm at my end, my healer, redeemer, again and again, Lord, my mother and my father, brother, sister, and friend. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. Everything I needed, Lord, you've always been. Everything I've needed, Lord, you've always been. Oh yes, you have. Thank you, Jesus, yeah. You've always been.
Devil, you can't stop me. Devil, you can't block me. You run above my feet. Cause I got the king in me. Too high to ever get low. My God stole the keys on the low. And all of the lies that you told, flipped them and made them and more. I got the word on my lips. I feel like I ain't 36. You can bring all of your tricks, but the battle is already
What the
fixed.
devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good.
If he did it for me, he could do it for you. Watch him turn it
What the
around.
devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good.
If he did it for me, he could do it for you. Watch him turn it around.
Devil, you can't stop me. Devil, you can't block me. You under both my feet. Cause I'm seated with the king. The Lord set a table for me in front of my enemies. And now I'm about to eat. And then I'm gonna give me some sleep. No more Satan, this is final. Can't take my life, you don't own the title. You tell me I'm nothing, that's a lie though. My weapon's a melody, where's my rifle? I got the king of kings living in me. Blood of the lamb in my testimony. Every knee shall bow, every heart shall sing that Jesus is king. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good.
If he did it for me, he could do it for you. Watch him turn it
What the
around.
devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good.
If he did it for me, he could do it for you. Watch him turn it around.
What was him? What was him?
Joy comes in the morning light. This is my confidence. The fact I'm breathing is my evidence.
Even when you tried to take my life, truth is I never had to fight, 'cause it's on my side. I'ma be alright. Oh, what the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. Watch him turn it around. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good, for my good. What the devil meant for evil, God will turn around for my good. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. Watch him turn it around. Caught up in my feelings. Spend so much time trying to play it safe, but the safety is just an illusion. When I'm called to be fearless, so here I come, I wanna follow where you're leading me. Time to let go, it's sink or swim now. So I jump, no matter what the risk. I'm finally diving in. Nothing can hold me back when you hold my hand. So I jump, no fear of what's ahead. I'm trusting you instead. Close my eyes, take a breath and step up to the edge and jump. Now I'm seeing.
All right, y'all stand up and sing with us like this. Come on, hands together. A little more like mercy, hey. A little more like grace, a little more like kindness, goodness, love and faith. A little more like patience, a little more like peace, a little more like Jesus, a little less like me. Yeah. Denying I have changed, 'cause I've been saved by who I used to be. That's right. But even at my best, I must confess I still need help to see the way you see. Yeah. Somebody with a hurt that I could have helped, somebody with a hand that I could have hit. And when I just can't see past myself, Lord help me be a little more like mercy, a little more like grace, a little more like kindness, goodness, love and faith, a little more like patience, a little more like peace, a little more like Jesus, a little less like me. A little more of living everything I preach, a little more like Jesus, a little less like me. Oh, a little less like me.
Yes, good morning. Y'all can have a seat. I'm going to be up here for a second. My name is Justin, and I'm the high school director here at North Point Community Church. A special hello to all of you Auburn fans who yesterday said, God, give us a touchdown and I'll come to church. Welcome. We're glad that you're here. Well, that song is incredibly appropriate today. The words say, when I can't see past myself, help me to be a little more like Jesus and a little less like me. We're in the middle of Be Rich, and that's exactly what it's all about. This is our annual generosity campaign where we encourage you here at North Point and watching online to be rich and giving and serving and loving our community. Well, last week you did exactly that. Last week was our giving week, and so many of you, as always, were incredibly generous with your money. I want to celebrate the numbers in a couple weeks, but they don't give me that information, so we'll let Andy do that when he comes back. But we're going to continue in Be Rich, and any of you who didn't get a chance to give last week because you left your wallet in the car, or maybe you're a little late getting in here, we want to give you an opportunity to be involved as that as well, here in the room and online. So if you would, take out your phone, open the camera. We're gonna put this little squiggly box up here called a QR code. Some of you figured that out at your local restaurants. You don't take a picture of it, okay? That's a common misconception. You just point your camera at the box, a link will pop up at the top, and you can go give online to take part in Be Rich. Well, we're continuing Be Rich. This is one of my favorite weeks. This is the Serve Week, and we have an incredible opportunity for anybody, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, to serve the local community. But before we get to explaining that, I want to introduce you to a group of folks, so check this out.
Teachers have been asked to change and reorder everything around them. Shut down classes, order masks, adapt lessons, focus on virtual learning, deliver meals to families, offer digital support, teach PE through a screen, teach science without a lab, teach humanities at a distance. Teachers have stepped into many roles: germ killer, temperature taker, contact tracer. Struggling with feelings of self-doubt, fear, and decision fatigue, teachers put students above their own needs. The days were difficult, but one thing remained the same: their love for their students. Our sons, our daughters, our transit small groups, our inside out freshmen, our upstreet kindergartners. Teachers held parades for our children. They hand-delivered art supplies for projects. They became a welcoming face as they held story times on video calls. Teachers proved that they are more than a member of our community. They are a partner, a mentor. They are heroes. No matter the challenge, they keep stepping up. Now, it's our turn to encourage them, to remind them that they are seen, they are valued, and that they are loved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, teachers, sincerely, thank you. As someone who works with high school students, I get the privilege of hearing and seeing the significance that teachers play in your student and your child's life, the role that they play. No partnership with parents is as significant as that of a teacher. So we want to serve all the teachers who have navigated this pandemic and figured out ways to continue to influence and teach your children. And an easy way that we've decided to do that is, as you leave today, everybody will get the chance to grab one of these cards. And on these cards is a teacher's name, some of their interests, where they teach, their address. And on the bottom is a place for you to simply write them a note of encouragement. So we would encourage you, as you leave today, grab one of these cards, you'll rip off the bottom, write them a note of encouragement, and then it'll tell you the address to send it to. If you're watching online and you'd like to be involved, you can go to northpoint.org/top3, northpoint.org/top3. There's a place for you to click and fill that out as well. Besides the cards, that's the easy thing to do that we all can do. Besides that, we have 5,000 serving opportunities for North Point Community Church to come alongside and partner in serving the community. Also, if you go to northpoint.org/top3, you can see those opportunities, and I would encourage all of us, let's take some time and let's serve our community in this Be Rich season. It's going to be an incredible Sunday for a lot of reasons, one of which is we get to hear May's story coming up in baptism, as well as Pastor Clay Scroggins is here today, my good friend and ex-ping pong partner, so he has a great message for us today. But before we get there, I'd invite you to stand up. Taylor and Allison are going to lead us in singing. Say hello to somebody near you. Happy Sunday.
Let's sing together. We are heaven's fine creations, His pride and adoration, treasures woven by Him. Let's sing that again. We're heaven's fine creations, His pride and adoration, treasures woven by His love. And His careful hands, they hold us safe within His promise of calling and of destiny.
Every voice. And I will sing of all you've done, and I'll remember how far you carried me from beginning to the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end.
A father's heart that's for me, a never-ending story of love that's always chasing me. Hey, His kindness overwhelming and hope for me unending. He's never given up on me. No.
And I will sing of all you've done, and I'll remember how far you carried me from beginning to the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end, and I will sing of all you've done, and I'll remember how far you carried me from beginning to the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end, until the you are faithful, you are faithful until the There wasn't a day that you weren't by my side. There wasn't a day that you let me fall. In all of my life, your love has been true. So with all of my life, I worship you. There wasn't a day, no, that you weren't by my side. There wasn't a day that you let me go. In all of my life, your love has been true. So with all of my life, I worship you. Yeah.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself. when I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so good to me. Oh yes, you have. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Hey, you have been so kind to me. So we say, oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, no, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. North Point, I'd love for you to stay standing. We get to celebrate alongside Mai today, so let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Mai Brew. I came from Vietnam in 1975. I was raised Buddhist. My adoptive father was atheist. In my 20s, I was searching for something meaningful, and I even considered studying theology in college because I was wondering what is true for me. I even went to church with friends and family that I've known, but nothing connected. I didn't feel it in my heart. Not until the death of my mother-in-law, and shortly 2 weeks after that, my brother. I was so broken, I couldn't even cry for a while. So I decided I would go back to church. There I found peace. Every message now applied to me, and it makes sense. I know now that Jesus died to pay for my sin. I want to live a life fully committed to Jesus. That's why I'm so excited to be baptized today, and I know this is what I meant to be.
Let's stand up. Mai, you said that when you were first in church, nothing really connected. But I wonder if something did, though, because when you were in your deepest pain, you knew to run to God. And in Him, you found the comfort and the hope and the peace and the love and the truth that you were looking for. It is based on your decision to follow Jesus that is my honor, my sister, to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, I believe. No shadow you won't
point, would you pray with me? God, we are in awe of a love like that. God, a love that would chase us down like that. God, the same love that chased Mai down, God, is the same love that's in this room right now. And we're so grateful, Jesus, that you would love us like that. God, I pray that we would just be able to pour a fraction of that love back on you. God, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. That's what we do when we sing. God, we just give that love back to you. And we're grateful for that. God, we're grateful for your son, Jesus. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen. Hey guys, thanks so much for singing with us. Y'all can go ahead, take a seat.
Well, hello, everybody. Good seeing you. Good seeing everybody who's watching with us online today. Good seeing everybody here at North Point. So good to be with you today. Isn't it fun to get to be together, after being away for so long, not getting to do church for a while? Man, it is, we got to do church, but we did it online, but doing it in here, it's just really awesome. And those of you that are watching online, you're with us, we're with you. We got a bunch of partner churches watching us as well, so good to see you. My name's Clay. For those of you who we have not met, would love to be able to say hello, but really grateful for this opportunity just to be able to share a little bit out of Mark 5. If you have a Bible, you can turn to Mark 5. If you have technology, you can open up your app to Mark 5 and you can read along with us, or we're gonna put it on this large screen so we can all read it together. But hey, to get started, I wanna just introduce you to this phrase. It's not new to you, you probably know it, but fill in the blank for me. Desperate times call for, yeah, you got it. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Some of you were on it. You're on your game today. You came ready to play. I like it. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? What that means, you know it. I mean, you've used this line. You've had situations like this where you did something that would have otherwise been unacceptable, but because of the adverse circumstances, those actions were now, they were almost needed. They really were in some ways the best choice, even though they would have otherwise been rejected. Desperate times, when things get bad, when things get hard, when things get difficult, they call for desperate measures. When I was thinking about this little line, I thought about this one particular story of mine. You've got your own story as well. This would have been almost exactly 10 years ago. I was sitting at a breakfast at Cracker Barrel, and I was in one of those seasons of life where, do you have those seasons where technology kind of gets in your way and then you go, you know what? I'm not gonna have my phone with me. I'm gonna put it down, face down. I'm not gonna look at it. I'm gonna really try to be present in the moment. I was in one of those seasons of life. It just so happened that my wife was also 9 months pregnant. And we had a child 2 years earlier. And so we had a 2-year-old at the time. And the way our first delivery went, it was induced. It was an induction. It was planned, which is awesome. It's the way all of it should go. And I know some of you might not be pro-induction, okay? I certainly don't need your judgment right now, though I'm sure you are willing to give it to me. So this second one, we actually were thinking, okay, this is gonna be an induction as well. In fact, this baby was scheduled to be induced the next day. And so on this particular day, I had no thoughts about having a baby because, for one, I'm a man, but two, because I just thought, well, we're doing this tomorrow, not today. So I'm sitting at Cracker Barrel with a guy who was a professor at the seminary that my wife and I, where we both attended and met, and he was in town for a conference. And so I was kind of reconnecting with an old friend over some delicious Cracker Barrel food. And I get done with the meal, and I put my phone in my pocket and go out to the parking lot and start look at my phone, and I had 17 missed phone calls from my wife. And I thought, wow, she really loves me. And then I had a series of text messages from her that, I don't know the right way to say this. I guess they escalated in severity, I would say. They escalated in the nature of the threat, you could also say. The first one said, hey babe, hope you're having a great morning. My water just broke. I think I'm about to go into labor. Nice one, very pleasant. The next one, please call me, this seems serious. A few minutes later, are you not getting this? A few minutes later, please tell me that you're not doing something else because this is really important. The last one was, I hope you enjoy living. Hello. So I immediately called her. I frantically drove home. She's standing there. I will never forget it. She's got like tears streaming down her face. She has the bag packed, standing outside. She had a neighbor come over to watch our 2-year-old. And she's just standing there waiting on me. And I go, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't have my phone on. She was like, yeah, you better not have had, right? You know, I don't even remember all that she said. I can't say it here, you know, so I'm kidding. My wife doesn't. She doesn't talk like that unless she's 9 months pregnant. And I pick her up. I race. I mean, I've never driven like that before. It was kind of fun in a way. You know, I'm like, there are no rules at this point. Like, as fast as you want to go, red lights are just a suggestion, you know, like do whatever, stop signs, like, nah, come on, that's for someone else. I mean, just full on breaking every law that I had ever broken, because in that moment, the desperate times called for desperate measures. And I'm in full disclosure, my feeling in the moment was not, it was not so much for the baby, though that was important. And honestly, I hate to say it wasn't even for my wife. It was really for my own life. Because I thought, if she has this baby in the car, I don't think I'm going to be able to live any longer. Like, I don't know. I mean, we're definitely not going to stay married, but I don't think that I would even be living today. So I was just very selfish in that moment. But the desperate times called for the desperate measures. And you have situations like this. You've had situations. You might be in one right now. And as silly as that one is, everything turned out great, and that child just had his 10-year-old birthday a couple months ago, and all of that's great, but there are times when the situation really it's dire, it's alarmingly scary, it's serious. Maybe it's something with a child, maybe it's something with a loved one, maybe you're in a marriage situation where you're experiencing this kind of desperation, right? You're experiencing this feeling of like, this is getting serious and I don't know exactly what to do about it. I want to talk about this for a few minutes today because this desperation as an emotion, it's not something we love. We don't enjoy it. But what we're going to find today is that God actually, he not only welcomes our desperation, but there are times where he really responds to it in a way that we don't find him otherwise responding. So I just want to ask you maybe a little bit more of a serious question, but when is the last time you felt desperate with God? But when's the last time that you felt this sense of desperation with God? He wasn't doing what you needed him to do. He wasn't coming through like you wanted him to come through. You had a situation where you felt like, I need you to move. I need you to act. I need you to respond. You know, this is one of those questions that really kind of levels the playing field, regardless of your religious background, regardless if you showing up today or watching today and you feel like you're full of faith, or you feel like you're empty of faith. Maybe you feel like faith is a long way away. Maybe you're not sure where you stand with God. You're not sure where God stands with you. In the middle of desperation, it kind of puts us all on the same level because we've all experienced those moments where you just reach out, cry out, call out to God. In fact, let me just change this question just slightly. When was the last time you felt desperate for God? This is one of the things that happens in the middle of our desperation is there are times when we actually feel desperate for him. Not just for what he could do, or not just for what he could provide, or not just for how he could come through, but those moments where we just feel totally out of options. Tried everything. In fact, maybe everything's been tried on you. In Mark 5, there's a series of stories. There's actually 3 different stories of people who they experience this. They just experience this sense of desperation, not just for God to do something, but to experience him. In all three of these stories, we're just gonna look at one today, but if you were to just go read through all of Mark 5, all three of the stories showcase three different types of people. And they give us examples, they give us instances, they give us the kinds of people, they show us the kinds of people that God did rescue, and hopefully, I believe, and I hope maybe today by the end of this, you'll get to the place where you could believe too that these are people that he still rescues today. But the person we're gonna look at the end of Mark 5 today he's a religious leader. This person had it all together. He had a lot going for him, but he had sought solutions, certainly. He was seeking solutions that were out of this world because the ones that the world provided just couldn't answer the situation, couldn't meet the demands of the situation that he was facing. And in this case, Jesus is going to prove to be even more personal to the one who recognized that religion could not provide all that he needed. And maybe today, my hope is that maybe today, maybe that's you. And if so, I hope that today we find that being at the end of our rope is sometimes the place where God gives us the most hope. Because that's what this particular person found. Maybe that's what you'll find today as well. So here's the way the chapter begins. Here, the way the story begins in Mark 5, not the chapter, but jumping in at verse 21. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. And this is consistent with most of Jesus's life. There was always a large crowd gathering around him. And so I wanted to set the context so you could just read this. He crosses over the lake, gets out, and there's already a large crowd gathered there. So you can just picture this. Maybe you're reading along, maybe you're just imagining it, but I'd love for you to just get the image in your mind. And out of the crowd, someone steps forward. Verse 22 says that then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at Jesus' feet. So immediately we sense the desperation in him. One of the synagogue leaders, let me just tell you a little bit about maybe what this might have been. Jairus may have been the leader of the synagogue, not the rabbi, not in the pastoral sense of the synagogue, but in the functional sense. He may have run the operations of the synagogue. You know, the way churches work or a synagogue works, it's like 51% ministry and 49% business. There's still resources to purchase and people to employ and operations to execute. And that was probably what Jairus's role was. And he was a man of great stature. People would have known this man. They would have known of this man. He was a man of great wealth. This is a man who probably had a really good education and went to good schools. He had some notoriety. He was probably a member of the country club. He was probably pretty buttoned up. Not the kind of man that you would imagine would step forward and fall down on his knees begging Jesus. But we're gonna experience a few moments of begging from Jairus, begging with all earnestness that Jesus might intercede into his crisis and to cure the problem that he's facing that seemed uncurable. He had tried everything else. I mean, you gotta imagine this man, for him to come to Jesus, running the operations at the synagogue, Jesus wasn't exactly thought of fondly in the synagogue at this point in his ministry, at this point in his life. And so this man would have exhausted every other option for him to get to the point where he could come and beg at Jesus' feet. And maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you think, I can't believe I'm in a church. Maybe you thought the doors were actually gonna shake when you walk in. Maybe you're watching online today or listening to this podcast today and you're thinking, I don't even know how I got here. I just know I've tried everything else and it didn't work. Well, I hate that you're in the situation you're in, and I don't know the circumstances that you're in the middle of. But his circumstances were dire and so hard and tragic and sad. Here's Jairus' situation. He pleaded earnestly with Jesus and said, my little daughter is dying. My little daughter's dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. Some of you have a little daughter. Some of you have maybe a niece or even a nephew. Maybe you have a granddaughter or even a grandson. Maybe you just have someone that you love, and you know the feeling of, this person that I love is dying and I don't know what to do about it. This story, this particular instance hits me extra hard because we're gonna find out later on in the story that Jairus' daughter is 12 years old, and my wife and I have a 12-year-old daughter. And I can't imagine, knowing how much I love our 12-year-old daughter, I can't imagine to what lengths I would go if she were so sick that she was dying. Fortunately, Jesus wasn't put off by the desperation. Jesus wasn't turned off by it. No, Jesus responds to it. This is such a beautiful little sentence. And I hope maybe even this little sentence will instill some hope in you in the middle of your desperation. So Jesus went with him. Isn't that awesome? He went with him. Jairus, I'm so sorry to hear. Yeah, I'll come with you. As far as we know, he doesn't know how long the journey is, doesn't know how long the travel's gonna be, doesn't know how long he's gonna be there, doesn't know what he's gonna find when he get there. But this is such a great picture of how God responds to our desperation. He says, yes, I will go. I will walk in the middle of your desperation. I will move into the desperation with you. I'll be right there in the middle of it. Jesus went with him, and he'll go with you as well. As they're on their way, there's a little interlude in this story. This large crowd, again, is right there, and they start pressing in around Jesus. Maybe they're going, well, I got a situation too. Well, how do I get a number? Is there a number I can call? How do I place my order? And Jesus evidently prioritized Jairus's. Maybe he got there first. Maybe Jesus was somehow leaning into his desperation, but he starts to go with him when a woman steps out from the crowd as well. Now, a couple of months ago, April Farmer preached a message about this woman here at North Point. And if you didn't catch it, you need to go listen to it. You have to go watch it. It was absolutely fabulous. It's still on the podcast. It's still on the website, where she talked about this woman who had a medical issue, her own medical issue. And what's interesting is that the medical issue that this woman had, Mark tells us that she had had it for 12 years. Remember how old the daughter is? She's 12. And so what's interesting is that 12 years before this, Jairus and his wife welcomed their little baby girl into the world. So much joy, so much gladness. Hopefully his wife did not have to call him 17 times to let him know that she was in labor. But in their case, there was so much joy and excitement, and they were thrilled. And at the same time, this woman, we know her, we don't even know her name, we just know her as the bleeding woman, that she, 12 years before this, had somehow contracted this situation that she couldn't cure. And this is such a good example of the way life works, that joy and suffering run together on parallel tracks. But all of this goodness in Jairus' daughter's life and all of the tragedy in this woman's life, they all culminate in this moment where Jesus is going to meet both of them in the middle of their desperation 12 years later. Pretty remarkable. Jesus is dealing with this woman. He's having conversations with this woman. We don't know how long their exchange takes. Could have been minutes. It could have been an hour. But however long it was, I want you to just imagine how Jairus is feeling. Have you ever waited on something? I waited the other day at the bank for like 3 minutes, and I was like, what are y'all doing? Do you not realize what year this is? No one waits anymore. I was like, can I not text you? Can I not do something to where you can automate this? I mean, you wait in a drive-through more than 5 minutes and you're losing it, right? I mean, Jairus, in his case, he's probably over there going like, all right, Come on. Okay, nice that you're being kind to the woman. Oh, I know who she is. I've heard about her situation. Ooh, wow, this seems interesting. This seems difficult. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, be kind to her. But hey, look, come on, let's go. Let's move it. My daughter, Jesus, surely it's not getting any better. You said you were gonna, come on, let's go. And while he's over there, agitated, annoyed, irritated, trying to be patient, he's like, I don't wanna make him mad, because he said he would come with me. But while he's doing that, some people come to give him some news. While Jesus was still speaking to this lady, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader, and they bring a message to him. They say, Jairus, your daughter's dead. I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but we just got the news. As soon as we heard, we came straight here. I'm so sorry, but she's already passed away. Jesus is late. He missed it. It would have been cool, but it's already over. And then they ask him this question that I would imagine is a question that maybe you haven't asked with these specific words, because this is very bold to approach Jesus in this way, or even to approach God in this way, but you've probably thought it before. Have you had a situation where God didn't come through? You were trying to get in the school and you didn't get in, got the news, or you were really praying that the relationship would work out, maybe the marriage would work out, and then it didn't. Or maybe it was a health situation, you were praying and and it didn't go the way you wanted it to. They say, hey, why bother the teacher anymore? Why bother him anymore? Have you ever felt like you're bothering God? It's over, it's done, it's gone. You already got the news, the papers are final, the deal's been signed. You didn't get in, you didn't get it, it didn't come through. But you want to keep asking, but you feel like, I don't want to bother him. I mean, he's probably moved on. He's got something else. He's got some other person to help out. He's got some other thing to do. And so they say to Jairus, why would you keep bothering him? Hey, let me tell you the great news. Jesus was not turned off, and Jesus was not bothered. He's not bothered by you, and he wasn't bothered by Jairus. No, Jesus tells him, hey, you just keep asking. You keep begging. You keep up the desperation. Yeah, overhearing what they said, Jesus tells him, don't be afraid, Jairus, just believe. Continue to believe. And let your belief move you to me. Let your belief continue to push you toward me. You just continue to be desperate. Don't ever feel like you're bothering him. So Jesus says, Jairus, come on, let's go. We were going there, let's keep going. And I don't really understand this part exactly. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted you to read it because this is what Mark tells us. He gives us this little detail. He says that he did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of Jesus. We don't know if it's because he was kind of annoyed with the crowd. We don't know if he needed people that were going to really believe, if there was some combination of the faith of these people and what was about to happen, but he only let them come with him. I'm sure they had to feel pretty special. That's kind of nice, you know? Like, oh, just us? Well, yeah, we're in. Cool, yeah. When they get there, when they get to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with the people crying and wailing loudly. Now here's the way this worked in this culture, is that when someone passed away, when there was mourning, you would hire people to wail and mourn and make a big to-do over it. And it really told people a couple of things. Number one, it let them know your status. If you were really wealthy, if you had a great stature in the community, then you would have had a lot of people mourning the loss of whoever was lost. But it also let people know the depth of the hurt and the depth of the pain and how serious this was and how heavy this was. And so the fact that there were a lot of people there, this huge commotion, lets us know very wealthy, had a lot going on, and also extremely broken. so sad and hurt, so much mourning. Of course, it's his daughter. And so Jesus goes in. He goes into the home and he says to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead. The child is just asleep. This is a euphemism that Jesus uses over and over again throughout his life. We hear him using this, that death and sleep were almost one and the same. And it's almost as if he's pointing to all that he's going to do to defeat death in this life. That in the same way you would just wake up tomorrow morning from sleeping, that when you wake up past this life, that you will just be alive again in him. So there's so much packed into this that he's saying, hey, she's not actually dead, she's just asleep. Well, no one understood this, right? We barely understand this. But they just made fun of him. They mocked him because people in the moment, when you're at the end of your rope, when you're in the middle of desperation, when you're in the middle of your dire straits, it is so hard for people to understand all that God might do. And so, of course, they laughed at him. They mocked him. They made fun of him. Jesus, like we were just in there, man. She is dead. Like we know dead. Like it's pretty simple. Like she's not breathing. She's dead. She's not asleep. But they don't understand his power. They don't understand all that he's capable of. And so they laugh at him. And so Jesus, this is awesome. Jesus puts them all out, which would be wonderful, right? He just goes, I'm done. Yo, move out of here. Go, all of you. Yeah, haters, go. Like I don't need you right now. Move out of here. After he puts them all out, he took the child's father and he took the mother and the disciples who were with him and he went in where the child was. I mean, can you feel the emotion? I mean, the mom and the dad, Jairus and his wife, I'm sure they just break down again. Just devastated. This is the first time we know of that Jairus had now seen his dead daughter. I'm sure Peter and James and John, they were like, should we be in here? Like, I don't know that we should be in here. Like, we don't know these people. So they probably like kind of hung against the back wall. But as best as we can tell, Jesus, he goes in, and the way I picture it is he maybe gets down on a knee and gets right here, face to face with the daughter. It's gonna tell us that he takes her hand and looks right at her with all of the kindness and compassion of God, but also all of the power and authority of God. And he speaks directly to her. Look at what he says. He took her by the hand and he says to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. This is a little Aramaic phrase. Now, some of you probably heard me do that and you're like, wow, does he speak Aramaic? I don't, okay? But I've learned with words, you just say them confidently, and a lot of times people just go with it. So I think this is how you would pronounce it. It's the way I'm gonna say it. I invite you to say it however you would like. But he says to this girl, Talitha cum, and I would imagine, you know, if you're a dad, you would have used this phrase before. This is Talitha cum, meaning little girl. Talitha cum, imperative, get up. This is not, Talitha is not like something you'd say to a friend. It's not just like, oh, hey girl, what's up? No, this is something a loving dad would say to his little daughter, something a grandpa would say to his little granddaughter. This is a term of endearment, a term of compassion. And I bet that this dad had said this very line before to her. I mean, imagine she's 1 year old and she's just learning to walk and her legs are wobbly and she's standing up for the first time and she takes a couple of steps and then she falls down as 1 year olds are prone to do. What do you think the dad said to her? He probably looked down at her and said, Talitha cum, little girl, stand up, get up. Maybe she was 5, 6 years old, playing outside with some friends, kicking a ball around, and maybe a little kid knocked her down. And maybe Jairus, the dad, saw her and maybe he looks over at her and makes eye contact with her and goes, Talitha cum, little girl, get up. You can do this. Come on. I mean, she's 12 years old. So, you know, she's at that age where kids start sleeping later, you know? So maybe she had been up late the night before and maybe she's about to missed the bus for school. And maybe he goes into her room and opens up the blinds and gets some light in there and says to her, Talitha, cum, you're gonna miss the bus, come on, get up, little girl. He probably knew this phrase so well. So for Jesus to say this to his daughter, I'm sure a flood of memories and emotion came over him. But Jesus, with so much compassion, tenderness, Talitha, and so much power, cum, imperative, now, little girl, get up. And immediately, love that word, immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. Can you believe it? Immediately. I mean, I would imagine these parents, I imagine there's not an adjective that would describe how excited they were that their little daughter was alive, that she had begun to walk, that she's bouncing around the room with the same energy that she had always had. And at this, of course, they were completely astonished. I'm sure they were. And Jesus gives them strict orders not to let anybody know. He says, don't tell anybody about this. I don't want everybody to hear about this. And then he looks at them and says, and also he told them, give her something to eat. Somebody get this girl some Chick-fil-A. Like, what are y'all doing? Why are you still standing here? Get her some nuggets and some waffle fries. Come on. Like, let's go. She's been asleep for a while. Let's get her something to eat. Let's get some energy back in her. How beautiful, how amazing, how remarkable is this? And then here you are, here I am, and we've got our own situation. We've got our own problems. We've got our own desperation. Does this mean that God's just gonna do this for us? Some of you, this bothers you in a way because you're like, well, why hasn't God done this for me? Why didn't he do this for me? But what I want us to learn is I want to just pull out a few things from this story about how we can approach God, maybe even how we should approach God or how we get to approach God when we feel that same sense of desperation. What does this interaction with Jesus teach us about how we can approach God? That's my hope. Not to get him to do what we need him to do, but so that it might bond us to him in a way that we wouldn't otherwise be connected to him. That we might learn something about him that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. Here's the first one. The first big idea is this, that God is not turned off by your desperation. I hope that's good news for some of you, that if you're in a place where you feel desperate right now, you don't know how you're gonna make ends meet, you don't know where to go at this point, you feel at a loss, you feel like it's maybe a new season and you feel all turned around and upside down and you can't figure it out. It's been a difficult year or so and you're feeling that sense of desperation. The great news is that God is not turned off by your desperation. You know, God has this reciprocal nature to himself. When we draw near to him, what does he do to us? He draws near to us. When we return to him, he returns to us. When we seek him, that's when we find him. And so there's something powerful about being in the middle of desperation and approaching God with that same sense of intensity that somehow moves him. And so you keep bringing that desperation to God. Keep bringing it. He's not turned off by it. No, he welcomes it. He invites it. Don't let it become a barrier. No, let it become a bridge. Keep building the kind of faith that says, God, if you don't come through, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Second big thing is this, that God isn't put off by being your last resort. I mean, can you imagine, have you ever gotten one of those invitations, you know, where somebody invited you to something and maybe it's somebody that you kind of know, but you don't really know that well, and you kind of think, How many people did they call before they called me? You know, hey, we need another person in the foursome. We got an extra ticket to the show. We got an extra thing for the game. You want to go? And you're like, oh, what? Just curious. What number was? I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go. The answer is yes. But just want to know. Like, was I fifth? Was I seventh? Was I second? Like, which one? And sometimes we can get bothered by that, you know, like, I don't like being the last call, you know. I mean, it's fine. But great news about God is he doesn't seem turned off by that. He seemed like he was Jairus' last resort. This bleeding woman, he seemed like he was her last resort. This man that was possessed by these demons at the beginning of Mark 5, he seemed like he had tried everything else. God doesn't seem turned off by being your last resort. If you wake up today, if you got up today and you feel like, well, I've done everything else, I guess I'm gonna go turn to him, it's okay. That doesn't seem to bother him. He's so secure that he doesn't seem turned off by the fact that maybe you've looked a lot of other places for help. And he's not gonna hold that against you. He's not gonna make you feel guilty for it. He's not gonna shame you for it. He's not gonna say, okay, well, tell me what else you've done. Huh? Did you go to the doctor already? Oh, you did, and they couldn't help you? Okay, who else? Oh, chiropractor as well? Okay. Oh, and you did the acupuncture? Wow, you really, okay. Tarot cards as well? Well, okay, we're gonna have to talk about that. No, he doesn't do any of that. He just says, come on. Come on. We find Jesus to be a safe refuge, even if he's the last resort. He's a safe refuge, even if he's the last place that you're looking. You've looked everywhere else. You don't have to worry about that. You just keep bringing your desperation to him. And then the last thing is this, is that the desperation that we experience, and this is the best part of the whole deal, is that it actually deepens your relationship with God. It deepens your relationship with him. I mean, imagine the story that Jairus told from here on out. He probably told of this intense experience that he had with Jesus where they were walking there and he kind of got agitated and then they got back on course and then he heard the bad news and then he was thinking that it was over and Jesus said, no, continue to come, believe. And they get to the house and he tells the story of him putting all the people out and he probably feels this connection with him that he wouldn't otherwise have felt. And that is the whole point. You know what eventually happened to the daughter? Does anyone know? Has anyone heard the rest of the story of what eventually happened to the daughter? Did you hear this? She died? Some of you are like, where is this found? I don't know. I'm just saying she did because that's the way life works. It's like a 1-to-1 ratio of people to death, you know, happens for all of us. So she did eventually die. Now we don't know if she got to have a wedding and he got to be there for that, if she maybe made Jairus and his wife grandparents. We don't know. We don't know the whole story, but eventually she did die. The point of the story is not that God wants to change your circumstances if you believe. That's not the point. No, God doesn't just want to enhance your circumstance. That's not all he wants for you. Will he come through in your desperation? Maybe. Will eventually it turn out for good? Somehow. But more than anything, he wants to deepen a relationship with you. He wants to develop your relationship with him. He wants you to know him in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise known him. Through your desperation, that you might feel so connected to him no matter how it turns out. And so maybe today, maybe some of you are at your last resort, all the hope is gone, you feel like it's over, you feel like you don't know where else to turn. You don't have to wait to get there. You don't have to wait for it to be over. You don't have to wait until you feel a bunch of desperation. You actually can turn to him now, even if you're not there. You can actually turn to him before you've tried everything else. What if you made him your first response rather than your last resort? You can do that today. He welcomes that. He says you don't have to wait for it to get bad. You don't have to wait for that sense of desperation to set in. You're at the end of your rope now? Well, that's good too. The end of your rope is oftentimes where you experience the beginning of hope, and maybe that's what he wants to do today. Maybe you're praying that he might bring that same kind of resurrection to your situation. Pray it. Maybe you feel like you want to yell and scream at him and bring him all of your emotion. Bring it. Maybe you need to get down on your knees and beg. Get down on your knees and beg. Bring it all. Because what you're going to find is you're going to find a loving Father who says, come on, come to me. Bring all of it, all of your desperation. Bring it to me. And you're gonna find him, and you're gonna know him in a way that you wouldn't otherwise know him. And that's my hope. That's my hope for me. That's my hope for my kids. It's my hope for you. So Heavenly Father, we just pray that today that whatever's in our way, whatever's keeping us from coming to you, whether it's we're scared that you might not come through, or maybe it's we feel bad that we've tried a bunch of other stuff, or maybe we feel like we just don't even know how. I just pray that we would bring it all to you, just like Jairus did, that we'd get down on our knees if we need to, that we would yell and scream if we need to, that we would bring you all of that desperation. And as we do, we look forward to how you're going to meet us, how we're gonna know you in a way we wouldn't otherwise. We might feel connected to you, no matter what you do on the other side. God, I do pray for countless amounts of resurrection in people's stories, that you would change things, shift things, open up doors, bring things to life. But God, whether you do or whether you don't, I pray that we might know you in a real and intense and meaningful way. The King of Kings and the King of our hearts. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Hey, thanks again for being with us today. And remember, if you can help out by writing a teacher a note or by choosing a place where you can serve, we'd love for you to do that. Thanks for being a part of North Point today. We look forward to seeing you back here next week. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks.
Like Jesus, a little less like me. Yeah, there's no denying I have changed. I've been saved from who I used to be. But even at my best, I must confess I still need help to see the way you see. Somebody with a hurt that I could have helped. Somebody with a hand that I could have held when I just can't see past myself.